Hi, this is Catherine Morgan. I'm the founder of the Depression Discussions and also Point A to Point B Transitions. And today it is my pleasure to talk to my friend Steve Woodruff. I have known Steve, honestly, Steve, I think it's been like 7 years, a long
Something like
time.
that. Yeah.
And we've watched each other grow our businesses and reached out to each other at some critical moments on both sides for advice, guidance, and Steve's going to share a little different perspective today. Can you tell us a little bit about your background, Steve?
Sure. I'm a New England boy. I grew up in Connecticut for the first 17, 18 years of my life before going to school in Tennessee at Vanderbilt. And also spent 30 years wandering in the wilderness of New Jersey. But I've settled back into Tennessee and the Nashville area life where I really feel most at home. And I grew up as one of four boys, very rambunctious house. But I grew up always the introspective one, very sensitive, introspective, and insecure. It was just part of my wiring. Okay. And of course, when you grow up, you have no context for understanding yourself. You just are yourself. And so even then, back in my childhood, I had a tendency to withdraw from people, to be very self-critical, and didn't understand at that point, of course, that the seeds were being planted very early on for living in a state of depression.
Yeah, how would you know if that was your normal? Like you wouldn't know that other people live differently.
That's correct. All I knew was what I knew, which was life was a sort of an internal battle, and that was that, and I didn't know any different. And in many ways, it's good I didn't, because once I finally, in my 40s, was diagnosed with depression and started taking an antidepressant and discovered what happiness and peace feels like from a biochemistry point of view, right. I was completely shocked that I'd been able to survive that long.
Yeah, take us back a little bit and tell us what it was like sort of pushing and going through and what the struggles sort of felt like.
So life was just coping for me. It was a coping mechanism and managing mood and managing feelings. And the way I did that was to stuff it, basically, and just deny all feeling and push it all down. And my way of dealing with it was control. So I just had to control everything. And I figured that everything, whether it's my mood or whether it's my thoughts or whatever, it's up to me to deal with it. It's my battle. It's my job. I'm an independent Connecticut Yankee guy. And so, you do your thing. You fight your fight. You don't tell other people about it. You don't whine about it. You just do your thing.
That is a very New England thing. And, cap that off with the fact that you're a guy in a family of probably rough and tumble brothers. What other strategy would you have had to pull out?
We didn't do emotions much, and that just wasn't part of our family lineage to do emotions. So I just learned. I just managed and coped and just pushed forward and fought forward. And what I later learned is that all the interior battles that I was fighting as far as trying to achieve some level of peace or happiness or contentment, trying to get out from under what ended up being really just a dark cloud all the time. I really thought that it was just a matter of self-doing, self-motivation, thought control, feeling control, all of that stuff. And so I just did that and did that and did that and did that. And I think the thing that really was a saving grace for me in my 20s and 30s and 40s was having a busy career and having a very busy family. I have 5 boys, 5 young men now. And that prevented me from having the luxury of thinking too much. I just couldn't Spend the
I talk
time.
to clients about this all the time. I'm sure you do too, that sometimes spending too much time in my own head is not a great idea.
Oh, well, that's all I ever did. I've got wheels constantly turning. I have an extremely analytical mind. And so the wheels are constantly turning. And the only thing that kept my sanity at that point was just having so much to do and learning so much in my career and trying to be a dad that it sort of kept it at bay. Now, it didn't make it go away. And my wife understood that I had issues. My mom, from a distance, she could see. And later I realized there was actually some family history.
Right.
So she would drop some hints along the way. But it wasn't until my mid 40s that I basically just hit the wall. I could not continue to just fake it and push it. And I was finally actually ready to listen to the idea that I had a problem. Up until then,
How did that manifest? Where you just couldn't get out of bed, or you blew up at a client, or like what was your version of hit the wall?
I was just so worn down, so internally exhausted.
Sorry, uncle. You just said
Spiritually
uncle.
exhausted, emotionally, psychologically, I had just burnt out. Had nothing left in the tank, and I'd been forcing it for decades. I finally agreed, not your typical New England thing, to go to my doctor, and I don't do doctors too much. And I said to him this. He laughed at me. I said, I'm at this point willing to consider that there may be something organic going on here. I told him what I was feeling and all that. So he gives me this kind of a wry smile. And he says, well, if you had a broken leg, you couldn't think your way out of that, could you? Your brain is an organ, right? So maybe we have to address, an organic problem. And that was like a revelation to me.
Never occurred to you. You're like, oh, okay.
And so the funny thing was that he prescribed a very low dose antidepressant as a starter. And it was a swallowing of my pride to do it. So I started taking it, and I woke up a couple mornings later, and I had this remarkable feeling of peace. I'd never, ever felt that before. It was like this cloud was lifted from my mind. And it was so unreal to me that those of us who grew up in the cold north will understand this. When it's early winter and you kind of nudge out onto the ice and you see if it's going to hold you, and you keep going a little further. That's how I felt when I got out of bed and I went through the day. I said, this isn't going to last. And I'm just and day after day, there was this sense of okayness. And I realized, holy crap, I'd had this screwed up biochemistry all this time. I had been fighting and using all the tools at my disposal to try to control my mind and try to get my mood straight. Nothing worked. And I needed some adjustment through a pill. And sure enough, it was like nothing else had ever created a feeling of peace and some happiness for no reason. So it has taken many years of repair work to try to undo the thought processes and the internal overzealous internalization of things.
Right.
And I still don't know on the chicken or egg problem whether the introspectiveness and negativity caused the biochemical problem or whether the biochemical problem caused the introspectiveness, and nobody really knows anymore. And I don't really care. I just came to realize that I can get generic Prozac real cheap and I can feel like $1 million, and that's all I need to know. It's wonderful.
What did your wife say when she had this new man?
Oh, for crying out loud. It was amazing. She had to also learn coping and managing mechanisms with my moods.
Right.
And she, of all people, could see the dark aspect of it, which I was desperately trying to cover up and control, but I couldn't completely hide it, obviously. So it was marvelous for her to be married to this new guy that, shared some of the characteristics of the man she thought she knew. But, there was this whole new element now. And so, here I am in kind of these later laps of my life, in my late 50s, and I'm still feeling like I'm just getting started. I'm still feeling like it's a lot of things are new, and I've got my life in front of me now. And sometimes I look back at those, what looked like lost years to me, even though I was very high functioning. Almost nobody knew that I was dealing with this. I managed somehow to just completely cover it up with coping. And I look at those years and go, man, what could have been, but
I don't know, maybe the joy you feel now is because you experienced that then, and your carpe diem, seize the day. I mean,
yeah.
I've seen a burst of creativity in you, especially since you moved to Nashville. You just seem like a really happy camper. Your business and the clarity work, and you're smart and you're snarky and you're productive and you're putting great content out there. Like, it's just been a huge shift for you.
The move to Nashville was a big deal for me because culturally, I didn't feel like I fit in New Jersey. I didn't like the culture there. I didn't feel at home. And then the winters, I was experiencing seasonal affective disorder. So the winters were really getting to me.
Yeah.
And I was miserable for 3 or 4 months, even while taking my depression medication.
Right.
And so moving to Nashville was a huge climate and cultural shift that really energized me and continues to energize me and convinces me that a lot of these things are multifaceted. And for me, it was very important to not only be taking something to adjust the chemistry of my brain, but to be in an environment that felt right for me.
Phil Gerbishek said the exact same thing. He said the best thing he ever did was move to Tampa, and it's just been a huge boost of energy and positivity and productivity. He said the exact same thing.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing that I was talking with someone yesterday who moved from Minnesota, and same deal. They moved down here and really enjoying life, and they just realized they didn't fit Minnesota. And sometimes you don't really fit even in your native land. You've got to find some other place where you fit, or some other work where you fit. I'm very glad that this problem was addressed before I became an entrepreneur, because I can just imagine how bad it would have been for me to be totally on my own as an entrepreneur, struggling through all the things that we struggle with and still being depressed. I probably would have gone off the wrong edge of a bridge at some point.
Right. Actually, let's pull that apart a little bit, because you have been very open about some times in your business when you were struggling, as we all do, and how hard it was for you to actually reach out to help. And then you were having sort of a strategy crisis. Do I do this? Do I do this? And you know a lot of really smart strategists. And you made yourself reach out and say, hey, you know what? I need your insight, your guidance. Can I talk to you for 15, 20 minutes? And then you wrote a post about all the people who came and supported you. Can you talk about what that was like to do and the benefits of it?
Well, as you know, one of the phrases I use all the time is you can't read the label of the jar you're in. And so
I should go get my Lucite that's on my
that's
it's
right.
in my library.
When I do my clarity sessions, I get to play the role of the outside observer, helping, analyzing, and helping people figure out who they are and what they need to do. But I came to realize that it's absolutely just as true for me. I can't see myself objectively, either on the emotional side or professional side. So I have a business coach, and I have also a number of other people that I reach out to when I'm perplexed and when I'm lost. And it's one of the most wonderful things. If you can finally get to the point of surrender, of realizing, okay, we can't really be independent, but we can be interdependent.
Yes.
And be able to help each other and drop the whatever the illusion is, whatever the imposter syndrome is, that you've got to have it all together.
Right.
It's a real relief. It's wonderful, actually. And other people are much more able to then open up and share what they're going through if you set an example and just say, hey, I'm a messed up, kind of half broken person as well. And let's just deal with it.
Yeah, I agree. I have had some very rich conversations when I've sort of come to the end of something. I'm like, Uncle, what, help? You know
Mm-hmm.
me. What do you see me doing? What have you seen me do well? What suggestions do you have? I'm kind of interested in this. Outside perspective is so important. And both you and I have been professional consultants for most of our career. I don't know why it's sometimes so hard to reach out, but it can be.
Oh, it can be if you play the role of the sage, the consultant, the advisor, whatever. Then you're either going to just try to put out some false image that you
Right.
sit on a throne above all the plebeians, or you realize, okay, I may have a certain ability and a certain gift and a certain amount of wisdom and knowledge, but I'm messed up too, and I need a lot of help, and I do, and it's a joy to get help from people. I spent a day with Pamela Wilson, who's my business coach recently, doing brainstorming, and we both had each had some idea of where we thought where this was going to go, and it turned into something completely new and different and exciting that I never had anticipated. And it was the interdependence of the brainstorming and the thinking through that created that. Whereas 15 years ago, I would have thought, look, I just got to figure it all out myself. That's just
Oh
all.
yeah, you might not have even hired a coach because you wouldn't have thought that you needed one.
Nope. That would have been an admission of weakness.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I hired a business coach that's, 2, 3 levels ahead of me. This guy's got some serious stuff, and we're uncovering some demons, and they're scurrying, and it yesterday kicked my butt. But
Mm-hmm.
it's worth every penny. I know I'm going to have a huge breakthrough, but wow, was it hard to have him ask me some of the questions he asked me, and this is like giant shame spiral of something I hadn't processed. I'm like, whoa. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's hard, but it's so valuable. It's so
It
valuable.
is. And I think the biggest thing for my message for people, and particularly men who may be struggling with it or may not even know they're struggling with depression, they just know that they're internally isolated and fighting and feeling like they're drowning and feeling very alone and feeling down, but having to constantly be up for everybody else, is that this can be a very normal experience, normal in the sense that it happens a lot. And the word shame is the word you use. And that's the thing we as men in particular have to overcome, is the sense of shame that we don't have our act together, that we can't fully control our emotions, that yes, we can actually be deeply affected by things in our childhood, and that it's far healthier to just own that and get it out than it is to simply internalize. Internalization, eventually something's going to crack. And it's better to let it out early than have it explode later.
Yes, I'm going to add to that. It can manifest in a bunch of different ways. Migraines, stomach problems, weird rashes, sleep problems, anger management problems. Like, it's gonna come out if you can stuff it down for only so long, but it'll come.
Oh, it'll come out. Alcoholism, workaholism, whatever, it'll all come out somehow. And it's taking that first step of just being able to say, as I said to my doctor, maybe something's wrong.
Maybe
so
you go for a physical, every so often. Sometimes you need a mental checkup.
Yeah, and sometimes maybe it is biochemical. And if it's biochemical, then maybe you need a pill, and you can't control that, and that's okay. For a while, I was thinking, am I really going to be okay with being dependent on a pill every day? And then I thought of the alternative. It was like, yeah,
I'm all good.
Every day.
I wake up feeling pretty cheerful and pretty happy with my life, I'm all good.
Yeah, I remember what it was like. And I sometimes have missed one, and I have had little dips that just remind me, ooh, I don't want to go back there. That was not a good place.
Yeah, I feel that way about my meditation practice. I'm a much nicer person when I meditate. I almost do it for others rather than myself. Oh, well, thank you so much, Steve, for sharing. I know it's really important. I know that, men specifically are going to get hit even harder with this than women are, I think, because they don't some men aren't that comfortable talking about not being, everything's great,
Yep.
and one of the things I want to do with this is to have a place where people can see other people talking about it and maybe then feel comfortable to talk about it themselves.
Well, we men love our masks, and we very intuitively put them on, wear them, keep them up. And sometimes it's a huge step of faith for a guy to drop the mask and say, all right, I'm having problems. But it can sometimes be the best thing, not only for them, but for the people around them who also are having issues. And if one person can admit to it, talk about it, articulate it, deal with it, it opens the door for others as well. And I hope that that's what these discussions will do, Catherine, with various people that listen to them.
It seems to be starting. People are leaving messages. They're talking. They're opening. They're listening. They're thinking. So thank you so much for being part of this. You've been a big supporter of this project, and I appreciate you so much, Steve Woodruff.
It's my pleasure. Thanks, Catherine, for having me.
Hi, this is Catherine. Thank you for watching this interview of the Depression Discussions, the conversations entrepreneurs need to have. If you want to see more interviews, you can go to depressiondiscussions.com, or please join the conversation on Facebook at Depression Discussions. This is a labor of love for me, bringing this conversation out into the open and out of the closet. My other labor of love is my company, Point A to Point B Transitions, where I help entrepreneurs decide if they want to go into corporate jobs or fix their solo consulting businesses so that they work with clients that they like and make the kind of money they want to make without exhausting themselves and hating their business. If this sounds like you can schedule a 45-minute one-on-one complimentary consultation with me, and I'll help you figure out your right next step. This is Catherine Morgan from Point A to Point B Transitions and the Depression Discussions. Thank you.